Ladies and gentlemen, we are 12 parties away from quorum. We're approximately a day and a half late, so we'd like to start as soon as possible. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're 5 parties away from quorum. 5 parties away. We're 1 party short of quorum. Okay. Oh, we've reached quorum. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We will start the morning session. I hope everyone had a good rest over the 2 days and had some time to look around Samarkand. I will now pass the floor to Secretariat for housekeeping.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one housekeeping announcement. The Secretary would like to remind parties and observers that the deadline for submission of any in-session document is 6 p.m. today. So 6 p.m., 2nd of December. And just to explain that the document submitted after this time may not have enough time to have it translated and published in time for discussion in Committee 2, which has the last session tomorrow afternoon. This is the reason why we have a document deadline of 6 p.m. Thank you, and back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start with Agenda 64. Sorry, I'll give the floor to Secretary General for some comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and welcome back to COP20, and I hope that you had an opportunity to take a rest, get to see a little bit more of Samarkand and some of the places outside of Samarkand, this beautiful country and all they have to offer. The Secretariat was able to rest a little bit, but we still keep working, of course, and during that time that we were working these past 2 days, we've done a little bit of tracing of all that has been happening in Committee 2 and Committee 1. And I have a little bit of a concern that we have traced now that we have about 360 new decisions at this point, and we expect that there's going to be some more that still we are waiting on the final outcome of some of the discussions that are going on in the different working groups. So we expect that there's going to be more than 360 decisions at the end of this COP, which will be then very similar to what we had at COP19 in Panama 3 years ago. We have been discussing all the issues related to the lack of financial resources to the Secretariat, the reduction of the contributions that the Secretariat has been receiving, the situation of the arrears. I have offered a budget that has restructured the Secretariat, which means that we will have less people. I have offered to delay the recruitment of new people as I have restructured to be able to have further savings next year. That means that we will have less Secretariat in the warm bodies to do the work in the Secretariat. And I'm a bit concerned also that with some of the decisions that are being taken, there's new language, there's new functions, there's new tasks that have been put in, not only for the Secretariat, but also for the committees. There are some decisions that are being taken that also involve changing a little bit what is clearly set out in the rules of procedure and in the rules of procedure and the terms of reference of the committees, where some new tasks are being assigned to the Animals Committee, the Plans Committee, so there's going to be many more issues and overload of work to some of these committees, even though we have been discussing prioritization and trying to reduce the burden of work. So I wanted to bring this to attention as a stock taking at this point where we've reached now that we have almost to the end of the committee meetings, the committee sessions, where we're going to go into plenary and you're looking at those COM documents. I would very much appreciate it if you would take a look where there's new assignment, new decisions, how to pare down maybe, take step-by-step approaches, to not expect that everything can be done by Standing Committee 81, because it's a hard truth that we are confronting right now, that it is even a smaller Secretariat than we've had all these years, and that it's a very big amount of work that is assigned to the Secretariat and to the committee. So I ask for your indulgence. I ask for you to take close consideration and understand that 360 decisions and possibly more will be an incredible amount of work for the Secretariat and the committees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Also, just to provide an update, China requested to be in the working group for trade in endemic species, Agenda 73, and I've approved it. So this for information. And apologies, and now we actually go to Agenda 105.2. 105.2. So this document is submitted by the United States of America. I note that the Secretariat has made some amendments on the proposal. So I would like to invite the United States of America to introduce the document and also perhaps indicate whether you agree with the comments of the Secretariat. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States is pleased to introduce document COP20 Doc 105.2, which is intended to complement document COP20 Doc 105.1. We acknowledge that the draft guidance and best practices related to periods of transition and possible transitory measures is expected to be posted on the CITES website following this meeting, so parties and stakeholders may reference it immediately, and that the draft guidance will continue to be reviewed and refined during the next intersessional period. Nevertheless, the United States believes that it is important for parties to consider adopting key provisions and approaches that can be applied with respect to any amendments to the appendices adopted at the present meeting. We believe the amendments recommended in this document to Resolution Conf 12.3 Rev COP 19 on permits and certificates, and Resolution Conf 13.6 Rev COP 18 on implementation of Article 7, Paragraph 2 concerning pre-convention specimens will help reduce burdens on parties and enforcement officers, minimize delays and inefficiencies for entities engaged in trade at the time of import by making it easier to identify legal trade that is compliant with the CITES requirements, increase available data on CITES species and trade, and improve traceability for purposes of facilitating future legal re-exports. Therefore, we invite the Conference of the Parties to adopt the amendments found in Annex 1 to document COP20 Doc 105.2. In reviewing the Secretariat's comments on this document, we do not support adoption of the Secretariat's suggested amendments to U.S. proposed changes to paragraph 23 of Resolution Conf 12.3 Rev CoP19. Based on additional internal discussions and consultation with other parties, we believe that the best approach is to make the U.S. proposed new paragraph 23C i instead as a new paragraph 23D, with the remaining subparagraphs under paragraph 23 updated accordingly. This would ensure that the limitation on the exception provided in paragraph 23C only to species included in appendices 2 and 3 does not hinder the ability to issue retrospective CITES documents for specimens newly included in Appendix 1 for a pre-convention specimen that was legally exported or re-exported prior to the entry into force date and that arrives at the port of import on or after the entry into force date without the necessary CITES documents. We also believe that the reference to shipments arriving within an appropriate time frame for the type of shipment and manner of transport is important additional guidance, and we support its retention. We support the Secretariat's suggested amendments to paragraph 12 of Resolution Conf 12.3 Rev CoP19 and to Resolution Conf 13.6 Rev CoP18 and support their adoption as reasonable and providing clarification. Thank you, Chair.
United States of America, just for clarification, for paragraph 23, the new D in Annex 1, the language will still be the same as indicated in Annex 1, right? Thank you. So, thank you, United States. So, so they have clarified that for Secretariat's comments, they are agreeable for para 12 and para 3. So I would like to open the floor now for paragraph 23. So for paragraph 23, there is the comments by, the edits by Secretariat and also the original version by the United States of America. So I open the floor. Please indicate if you support United States edits or Secretariat's edits so that we are clear on where we are going. I open the floor now to parties. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The UK supports the proposed edits just put forward by the US to paragraph 23. Thank you.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On paragraph 23 of Resolution COF 12.3, Section 14, we support the version redrafted by the Secretariat with an additional text that we have submitted in InfoDoc number 73 that I will be happy to read now.
Yes, please.
At the end of the new point 3, in paragraph 23, we would ask to add the bill of lading and or customs declarations and or other documents that are able to prove an export can be considered as a further proof of export besides an issue pre-convention certificate. I can repeat if necessary.
Yes, please.
The bill of lading and or customs declarations and or other documents that are able to prove an export can be considered as a further proof of export besides an issue pre-convention certificate. And again, this should apply to the number 3 as written by the Secretariat, redrafted by the Secretariat.
Okay, thank you. Nigeria, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Nigeria supports the amendments made by the US in paragraph 23. Thank you.
Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We can support both the US and the EU comments. On the EU comments, this could be very important because we may have some issues of issuing press convention certificates, and these kinds of alternative proof could be very helpful to the process. Thank you.
China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We support the proposed revisions to Resolution 12.3, Rev CoP19, and the Resolution Conf 13.6, Rev CoP18, made by the EU and the Secretariat. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So Canada supports the document presented by the United States and the paragraph 23 as a new paragraph D as proposed by the United States here. With regard to the addition from the EU, a little clarification would be welcome. It says as considered as further proof besides, so it's unclear if the intent here is that bills of ladings or customs declaration replace a possible pre-convention certificate or added with a possible pre-convention certificate. We also note that in some contexts, like in Canada's national law, we would need to receive documentation from a responsible authority, and a customs declaration or bill of lading would not have been issued by a responsible authority. So if we retain this, we might need some text about in accordance with national law. Thank you.
European Union, could you provide clarification to Canada's query?
Yes, Chair, thank you for giving me the floor. The documents mentioned in our text are meant as an alternative to the to the pre-convention certificate, an alternative method of proof. Hope it's clear.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. While we appreciate the concern raised by the EU, unfortunately, the documents referenced, such as a bill of lading and a customs declaration, they are not CITES documents, and so therefore they cannot be accepted or issued in lieu of CITES documents. So we cannot support the amendments suggested by the EU. Thank you.
Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Sénégal soutient la proposition des États-Unis et ne sommes pas d'avis avec l'ajout de l'Union européenne. La CITES est une convention internationale au-dessus des documents de douane qui sont dans des lois nationales. Je crois que les certificats pré-convention, c'est des cas qui arrivent souvent et ça pose problème. Je crois qu'il faut se fier aux documents de la CITES qui est une loi internationale au-dessus des lois nationales. Merci.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief response to the concerns raised by the United States. We want to clarify that the situation deals with pre-convention moments, something that's when the convention is not applicable. We recognize that sometimes countries have issues for their national laws to adopt pre-convention certificate, and to avoid unnecessary bureaucracy and given that there are existing documents that were granted when the convention was not applicable, but nevertheless are valid, they could be a useful source of proof to demonstrate that the characteristic of the shipment of the operation. So our amendment is meant to simplify bureaucracy and to allow people to deal with such situation even though the internal legislation doesn't allow it or creates problems, and to avoid unnecessary bureaucracy. Again, we'll deal with pre-convention, so a moment when the document of requested by CITES were not requested. That's why we support, we present this text. Thank you.
Niger, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Le Niger soutient les États-Unis et est d'accord de l'avis donné par le Sénégal, puisqu'il faut toujours avoir à l'esprit que au-delà donc des États, la CITES est là quand même pour prendre les dispositions nécessaires pour essayer de gérer les choses. Merci.
Fiji, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fiji would like to support the Secretariat's amendments, and we also welcome the insertion of the text from EU on sub-bullet point 2. We think that this also recognizes the loopholes in domestic legislation where we do not have adequate provisions for pre-CITES certificate, and I think the current practice is exactly how EU has explained it. We are using that currently, and I think having that recognized in text is very much appreciated, and we would like to lend our support to EU's insertions. Thank you.
United States of America.
Thank you, Chair. We continue to appreciate the struggle with regard to this, and we certainly experienced this with regard to taxa that were included in the CITES appendices at COP19. But we also continue to believe that in accordance with the requirements of the convention, both the export, re-export, and import have to be compliant with the convention. And so this concerns the issuance of retrospective documents. So that would be based on a consultation between the importing country and the exporting or re-exporting country to ensure that the conditions related to the trade are compliant with the treaty requirements. And unfortunately, if a shipment leaves a country of export or re-export without a CITES document, and during the intervening time that it's in transit, and it arrives at a port of import without a CITES document, if that importing country were to allow the import without CITES documents based solely on bills of lading or other accompanying documents, that import would not have been in compliance with the treaty requirements. So we recognize that in this guidance there's advice concerning consultation between the relevant management authorities, and this is an opportunity for allowing the issuance of retrospective documents. Thank you, Chair.
Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think what we are trying to achieve here is that we recognize that there is a problem because different countries adopt different national legislations. And at this point, we have an incompatibility with some countries because in case of Brazil, for instance, there is this issue that we cannot issue pre-convention certificates. And some countries cannot also have problems on and need the certificate when the shipment arrives. The problem is that the ships doesn't move instantly, and there is this delay between one thing and another. And what we're trying to achieve is something that we can try to work together. And I think that the proposal from the EU goes in that direction and trying to have some degree of flexibility in the sense that, well, in those cases that we understand that is a problem because there is different approaches in the legislations. We need to be more open to different solutions, and that's the spirit of the proposition, and I think it's reasonable. In that sense, maybe at this point, just to try to find a common ground, is we could accept the proposal from Canada in the sense of including according to national legislation, but I think it's important to maintain this discussion in the future, and I will ask it, so that my intervention be included in the minutes of this meeting, so that we can still discuss how to deal with this difficult situation. Thank you.
Noted Brazil, on your comments. I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. IWPA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to support the proposed amendments included in document 105.2 submitted by the United States. Disagreement between source and destination parties on precisely when or whether a permit is necessary during periods of transition can lead to significant financial damages for industries like wood products that rely on long-duration ocean and rail freight. For example, following the recent CITES listings of timber species such as rosewoods, ipe, kumru, kaya, and others, several parties involved in exporting and importing did not agree on when permits became mandatory or on the need to obtain them, generating confusion and trade barriers. We urge parties to support adoption of the amendments included in Annex 1 and continue to work to address this unnecessary inconsistency that negatively impacts stakeholders who are committed to compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. So just give me a moment. I will just, based on the comments, I think everyone is willing to compromise. So we will see if there's alternative language, and then I'll get back. Thank you. So, taking into consideration the comments from the floor and also the Secretariat's amendments and also the proposed paragraph by US, I'm just going to read out my suggested amendments and see, and then I'll get comments from the floor to see if it works for everyone. Okay, so it will start with, in the case of pre-convention specimens, that the shipment involves pre-convention specimens that were legally exported or re-exported prior to the entry into force. Then the sentence will follow. Okay, then it will says that were legally, prior to the entry into force date for a species newly added to Appendix 2 or 3 and arrives at the port of import on or after the entry into force date without the necessary valid CITES permits, CITES documents, and arrives within an appropriate time frame for the type of shipment and manner of transport, documents, the bill of lading and or custom declarations and or other documents that in accordance with national law can be considered as a proof of export. Okay, I'll just repeat again, sorry. I'll just repeat again. In the case of pre-convention specimens, that the shipment involves pre-convention specimens that were legally exported, open bracket, or re-exported, close bracket, prior to the entry into force date for a species newly added to Appendix 2 or 3, and arrives at the port of import on or after the entry into force date without the necessary valid CITES documents, and arrives within an appropriate time frame for the type of shipment and manner of transport, the bill of lading and or customs declarations and or other documents in accordance with national law can be considered as proof of export. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the attempt to compromise here. I think our preference would be to go with the suggestion from Canada, that we're still sort of struggling with this idea that a bill of lading or a customs declaration document can be presented in lieu of a CITES document. We really don't see how this can, how this aligns with the requirements of the convention for import of CITES listed species, for there to be the presentation of a CITES document. So we really, we seek your guidance here and the Secretariat's guidance on how these suggested amendments align with the obligations under the convention. Thank you, Chair.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We support the text that you just proposed. And for merely linguistic reason, we suggest a minor amendment to this new paragraph 3. And with that, I mean deletion of the word necessary before the words valid CITES documents, just for linguistic reasons, just it.
Senegal, you have the floor.
Oui, merci Madame la Présidente. Moi, j'ai vécu ce cas à maintes reprises, mais comment on a pu résoudre le problème avec l'autorité CITES de la France? Quand c'est un objet acquis pré-convention, il y a la facture qui a servi à acquérir ce matériel. On regarde l'état de la facture. Parce qu'une facture qui fait 30 ans, quand vous regardez une facture qui fait 2 semaines, c'est pas pareil, la couleur de la facture, ça c'est un. Et donc, c'est des preuves que le requérant porte à la connaissance de l'autorité CITES pour établir un permis CITES qui lui permet de voyager avec. Parce que sur le permis CITES, c'est mentionné quelque part, mention particulière. C'est là qu'on va porter la preuve que c'est un objet pré-convention. Et ce que dit l'Union européenne, la facture, le papier de douane, bon, ça ne peut pas remplacer. Il faut que tous ces papiers soient coiffés par un permis CITES fraîchement établi pour pouvoir voyager. Mais on ne peut pas partir sur la preuve des déclarations douanières, ça risque de poser des problèmes. Merci.
Thank you. I'm going to close the speaker list now. I have United States of America and Canada. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think my first point will be that to agree with Brazil that clearly some more ongoing discussion is needed, and I believe we agreed a decision under 105.1 to do just that, to continue talking about guidance about the periods of transition. And so I think this reaffirms the need for that decision and for us as parties to continue discussion. Regarding the bill of lading customs declaration piece, we understand the goal of the EU in supporting countries in terms of reducing administrative burden. We also understand the perspective by the United States in terms of being assured we're aligned with our obligations under the convention, which is of course very important to Canada. We have additional concerns that from a Canadian perspective, a bill of lading is not issued by the competent authority. And so we have concerns that hearing all the conversations we've had in other areas about concern with illegal laundering of specimens that were taken in contravention of a domestic law, all the more reason from our perspective to ensure that any assurance of export at the time after we've agreed a decision that a particular species requires the CITES controls, that the right authorities tell us that that export is indeed valid. And part of that is the communication piece that I believe we've already agreed. But these are some of the issues that we're considering when we were looking at these questions. And so I guess I don't have an answer for you, Chair, other than it might be best to not include anything at this time and continue the discussions under the decision that we took under 105.1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada. That's my sensing as well. So, United States of America, you can take the floor before I sum up. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So, with regard to the text that you read out, we also could live with, pardon, an addition to the end of that text that would read, for purposes of issuing valid CITES documents for import in accordance with Articles 3, Paragraph 3, 4, Paragraph 4, and 5, Paragraph 3. So that would be added to the end of the text that you presented.
Thank you. Thank you for the compromise and also thank you for all the comments. My sensing is that this is an important topic for all parties, and I really don't want to rush into the discussion now, and I do agree that more discussion is needed because I can see varying views and concerns as well. So my suggestion is that this continue to be worked on. Like I said, I do not want to rush into it because there could be concerns by other parties and they have not thought through or they have not had the time to actually think about it and voice their concerns here. So my suggestion way forward is not to adopt or agree on 23 first at this COP, but to consider it intersessionally. I would like to get some views on that. If there's any objection to my way forward. Because the guidance is still in the work, we can still review on the guidance as well in 105.1. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess, is your suggestion simply not to adopt any amendment to paragraph 23 at this point and then just consider it during the next intersessional period?
Yes.
Okay. So as we indicated in this document, we obviously wrote it without knowing what the Secretariat was going to be putting forward and also knowing that this guidance would be considered during the next intersessional period. Our effort with regard to this document was to provide some guidance that could be applied right now. And we have, as you've heard from the discussions here, there has been considerable sort of frustration and differences of opinion among parties on how to apply the requirements of the convention. And so our effort here was to provide some interim guidance for the moment, recognizing that, as I said, it would be refined. So I think we're obviously willing to go with the will of the committee, but we had hoped that we would have some guidance that could be applied now so that we wouldn't be in a position of waiting an additional 3 years before we've got something a bit more concrete. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, US, I do understand the concern, but like I said, I heard from the floor is that, there are national laws in play, and, like every parties have different national laws, and I'm just concerned that parties may not have time to consider it, and I really do not want to rush into it. And there is the guidance document in 105.1, which parties can use as a guidance. Yeah, so anyway, I'll give the floor to China first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe that given the complexity and importance of this issue, we want to echo Brazil and Canada that we prefer further intersessional discussion to ensure that all views and aspects are fully taken into account. So we want to support your way forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Japan is afraid that conflicts during the transitional period is real, and yeah, we support United States. Thank you.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, we had the impression that the European Union proposal was achieving some approvals by the room. It was with a view positively by the room, but if the COM is oriented to follow your suggestion and then not to amend paragraph 23 and then continue the discussion in this intersessional period, we can support that. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Yep, so I will just open the floor one last time if there's any objection to my way forward, because like I said, I think this is a very important topic for everyone, and as many parties already reflected that, they need more time to discuss on this. Okay, I see no requests from the floor. I will just go back to para 12 and para 3 of Annex 1. I did hear support for para 12 and para 3 for Annex 1 with Secretariat's comments. So I just want to open the floor again to see if there's any objection with Secretariat's edits for para 12 and para 3. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit confused, sorry, but so I'm going to say that on the proposed amendments to Resolution COP 12.3, Section 5, Paragraph 12, we cannot support both the proposal from the United States of America and the redrafting by the Secretariat, because pre-convention permits cannot be issued before a species is listed. This comment is on paragraph 12 of Resolution COP 12.3 and the proposed amendments. We have a comment of the proposed amendments to Resolution 13.6, if there is the right moment to say that.
Yes.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. We support the text as redacted by the Secretariat, but on the concept of excessive acquisition, we must notice that this concept is not defined and that its limitation is often not in line with national law. Therefore, we ask to add the following sentence to the amended paragraph 3 of Resolution 13.6. And means at the beginning of the paragraph 3, after the words necessary measures, we suggest to add, comma, if in accordance with relevant national laws, comma. Can I read it again?
Yes, please.
After the words necessary measures at the beginning of paragraph 3, we suggest to add, comma, if in accordance with relevant national laws. Again, this comment is being published under InfoDoc number 733 for ease reference to the text of the proposal. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the EU suggested addition to paragraph 3 of Resolution Conf 13.6, I think we're fine with that. I think that was already captured actually in the Secretariat's suggested addition of to the extent possible. But if we want to take the approach of having it explicitly spelled out in both places, I think we're fine with that. With regard to the EU opposition to the suggested amendment to paragraph 12 of Resolution Conf 12.3, we're sort of baffled why the EU is unable to accept this. It simply talks about may, right? It says that a pre-convention certificate may be issued. So it doesn't imply any kind of obligation. It simply provides an avenue for addressing the exact kinds of situations that we're talking about here in this committee where shipments basically change status while en route between an exporting or re-exporting country and the importing country. And so we would argue that, that this should stay here because it's simply providing another option for parties to address these sorts of situations we're discussing. Thank you, Chair.
United States of America, just to clarify, for Resolution Conference 12.3, the Para 3 amendment, the inclusion of taking into account applicable national laws, is that okay with the, okay, thank you. Okay, I did get agreement on the proposed revised amendments to Para 3 of Resolution Conference 13.6. So now I will just go back again to the proposed revised amendments to Resolution Conference 12.3, Para 12. I would like to get more views from the floor. Okay, I do not see any requests from the floor. European Union, I just want to go back to you again on the addition from the US. I think the Secretariat has included taking into account applicable national laws. I just want to check if that is a compromise for you, because if parties' law does not allow them to issue a pre-convention cert, then they won't have to. So it's accordance to national laws. European Union, yeah. And also it's may also be issued, so it's not like you have to issue. Yeah, European Union, you have the floor.
Okay, I just have 1 minute to consult internally. Just 1 minute. Thank
you. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. You were asking for views from the floor on the amendment to paragraph 12, so we'll just restate that Canada supports the amendment that was proposed. And with the addition of in accordance with applicable national law is fine as well. Thank you.
New Zealand, you have the floor.
Like to add our support to that proposal. Thank you.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Given the complexity of this issue and the different views that are being expressed in this COM, we suggest to follow the same way you suggested for the other paragraph, to leave it to be discussed intersessionally, to have a deep analysis of how to express this content if it is necessary, say all the implication it has. So we suggest basically not to amend the paragraph 12 and to discuss it intersessionally. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We hear what the EU is saying. We did not hear any other objection from other parties to keeping this text in here, as has been explained in detail. This is an option for parties. It's something that they may do. It doesn't imply an obligation. There's also the amendment from the Secretariat taking into account applicable national laws. So we feel that that provides a measure of confidence that parties won't be pushed to do anything that's not in accordance with their national laws. As we've explained, we brought these amendments forward in an effort to provide support to management authorities as well as to industry for situations that we may be encountering immediately following this meeting. And so we would hope that we can keep this language in there, recognizing that it is not an obligation and it's simply an option for dealing with these kinds of situations. Thank you, Chair.
Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that we need to be very coherent on the approach that you are trying to follow. I mean, if in the other discussion we agreed that this should be left for other discussions during the intersessional working group, I think it's fair that in this case we also have the same approach, in the sense that if in the other case we didn't have the flexibility to have very flexible language in the sense of trying to find a compromise, then I don't think it's fair to have this kind of approach here. So I would suggest leaving the text as is and having this discussion as we already have on item 105.1. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for all the comments. I think it's the same, yes, as the amendment to para 23, that more work needs to be done because it's quite similar. It's also, you know, how the shipment prior to entry into force and then, you know, before it arrives at the port. So it's similar. And I agree that more work needs to be done. So similar, where we go back that if guidance is needed, the guidance is there. So I will close this item. I will just say I will just sum up. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We see the direction that you're headed with this. We just want to reemphasize that we brought this forward with the intention of providing relief for the affected industry, for management authorities, and that we believe that the language here provides all measure of flexibility with regard to parties being able to implement these provisions in accordance with the obligations of the convention, but also recognizing their national laws. So we're disappointed that parties couldn't accept this draft guidance, our amendments to the draft guidance at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, United States of America. We noted your comments, so we will need to move on. So for this document 105.2, the committee does not accept the changes made to paragraph 12A of Resolution Conference 12.3, Ref COP 19. The committee does not accept the amendments to paragraph 23C A of Resolution Conference 12.3, Ref COP 19. The committee agrees to accept the amendments to paragraph 3 of Resolution Conference 13.6, Ref COP 18. So I repeat again. With amendments from the floor. So the committee does not accept the amendments to paragraph 12A of Resolution Conference 12.3, Ref COP 19. The committee does not accept the amendments to paragraph 23C(a) of Resolution Conference 12.3, Ref COP 19. The committee accepts the amendments to paragraph 3 of Resolution Conference 13.6, Ref COP 18, with amendments from the floor and also Secretariat's comments. Thank you, and I close this agenda item. Okay, so next item is 64. So there's 3 documents. And we look at 64.1. There are 3 recommendations, so we'll take it one by one. So if you look at 10A of document 64.1, we are to look at the amendments to Resolution Conference 17.8 contained in Annex 1. So we look at that first in Annex 1 on the CITES guidelines for the disposal of confiscated live animals, and specifically at question 7. So, and also look at the comments from the Secretariat. And I would like to get views from the floor. I open the floor to parties. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The EU and its member states support amendments to Resolution Conf 17.8 Ref COP 19 on disposal of legally traded and confiscated specimens as contained in Annex 1 to the present document. We also support to maintain Decision 19.169, 19.171 and 19.173 on disposal of confiscated specimens as contained in Annex 2 to the present document, and the deletions of the decisions 19.170, 19.172 and 19.174. We can also support the editorial changes suggested by the Secretariat on page 3 of the document to question 7 in Annex 1 to enhance the clarity of the text. Thank you.
Thank you. Russian Federation, you have the floor.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель. Российская Федерация поддерживает правки секретариата к документу и считаем возможным также добавить информацию, принимая во внимание национальные обстоятельства по предлагаемому пункту 7 в схеме принятия решений. Спасибо.
Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In the paragraph that discusses question 7, we would request a small change to question 7. Question 7 says, is there a commercial facility breeding this Appendix 1 species? And we wish to add the word registered to keep the document in conformity with Resolution 12.10 on registration of operations that breed Appendix 1 animal species in captivity for commercial purposes. So it would read, question 7, is there a registered commercial facility breeding this Appendix 1 species? And the rest would be as is. On the suggestion just now by the Russian Federation, we would not support that addition. Thank you.
Tanzania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tanzania supports the adoption of the amendments of the resolution COP 17.8 as revised by the Secretariat. We also support to maintain the decision 19.169, 19.171, and 19.173, and the deletion to decision 19.170, 19.172, and 19.174. Thank you, Madam Chair.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks the Secretariat and the parties for their work on this issue and supports the recommendation in document 64.1 as revised by the Secretariat. We also could align with the suggestion about adding registered, and we also have an amendment to the same resolution in 64.3, which we can talk about at the appropriate time. Thank you.
South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa support the adoption of the amendment. Thank you.
Sudan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sudan support the amendments and adoption revised by the Secretariat. Thank you.
Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nigeria supports the adoption of the amendment made by the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you. I did see support for the amendments made by Secretariat, but there was an amendment proposed by Israel on including registered. So is there a commercial facility breeding this Appendix 1 species registered? Israel, is that correct? Please, Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. The word registered would come at the beginning. Is there a registered commercial facility? So our suggestion is to put the word registered before commercial facility. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. So I would like to get views on the additional amendment. Is there a registered commercial facility into question 7? European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Israel, for this proposal. We're only thinking that to be registered is necessary for export, so we would agree that then, of course, if such a specimen is exported for commercial purposes, that needs to be a registered facility. But this might not be necessarily the case, as it could be a national facility or not per se for export. So we're just thinking of that. So this is in terms of disposal. Yeah, we'd like to flag that. Thank you.
Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And while I think in general, in an ideal sense, we would go with Israel's suggestion, my concern here is this is about finding a place for an Appendix 1 animal for which there might not be any registered breeding program in the world, because we know that there aren't registered export facilities for all CITES 1 species. So I would be a little bit worried about shutting this down as a place finding option for an animal just because it wasn't a registered facility. Of course, I sympathise with Israel's view, and we would generally align with them that registered breeding facilities are the optimal scenario, but I also take the EU's position that those are registrations for a particular purpose, and this is about finding a place for an animal to potentially spend its life. Thank you, Chair.
Senegal, you have the floor.
Oui, le Sénégal, je prends la parole pour dire mon expérience en la matière. Ce qu'a dit Israël peut être valable, comme ce qu'a dit l'Australie. Parce que si vous êtes dans un pays où il n'y a pas un établissement enregistré, mais peut-être vous avez un zoo national où vous pouvez envoyer des animaux. Nous, au Sénégal, on a des États, des établissements enregistrés, mais il y a le zoo. Maintenant, on choisit selon la catégorie du spécimen en question, le lieu de garde, parce qu'il faut lui trouver un lieu de garde. Ça peut être un zoo national. Merci.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to the discussion on question 7, we have a suggestion to see if there's interest. It could say, is there a commercial facility, parentheses, preferably registered, end parentheses, breeding this Appendix 1 species? So that might be one option. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close the speaker list. Colombia, you have the floor. And then Burkina Faso next.
Gracias, Presidenta. En relación con lo que sugieren, hay una duda. ¿Qué parte tomaría la decisión de entregar este espécimen que fue confiscado? ¿La parte que hizo el decomiso o la parte donde salió ilegalmente? Gracias, Presidenta.
Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
Ok, merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. C'est juste pour supporter ce que le secrétariat a proposé, également être d'accord avec le Sénégal parce que ce n'est pas partout où il y a des établissements enregistrés. Donc l'idéal, c'est que ce soit effectivement les établissements enregistrés. Mais ce n'est pas dans tous les États où il y a les parties où il y a des établissements enregistrés. Donc on préfère uniquement les établissements d'élevage. Merci.
I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. Born Free Foundation, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of 11 observer organisations. We broadly support the amendments to ResConf 17.8 proposed in CoP20 Doc 64.1. We also agree with Israel and the United States that question 7 should be amended in the decision tree to specify that commercial facilities should be registered where they exist. And for clarity, it could read, is there a commercial facility breeding this Appendix 1 species that is registered with the Secretariat according to the criteria in ResConf 1210, Rev CoP15, in the range state from which the species was derived? And is that facility interested in the specimens? Because this is posed as a question, we feel it does not necessarily exclude the placement of animals in non-registered facilities if a registered facility does not exist for the species concerned. And the option of inserting the word preferably as suggested by the United States could be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I've heard views from the floor, and I would just like to remind that to be a registered commercial facility for breeding Appendix 1, it is for export purposes. So for, disposal of confiscated live animals, which we are talking here, is when you need to actually hold the animal after confiscation, and it may not necessarily be for export. It could just be for holding or for breeding purposes. So that is why I did not see support for including registered, but I'll give the floor to Israel.
Thank you, Chair. Having heard the discussion, We would just like to remind parties that spoke about zoos and other non-commercial facilities that this question is specifically about taking a captured or confiscated Appendix 1 species and handing it over to a commercial facility, which is the problem here. But given the discussion, we would go along, please, with the U.S. compromise, putting the word preferably in parentheses, and I think that would then meet our issues. And also, as you said, Chair, this is specifically for where to put a confiscated item, and we would count on the countries to be diligent when exporting. That would only be from registered facilities. Thank you.
Noted on your comments, thank you. So I will now move on because, like I said, I did not see support for it. So I will move to 10B, recommendation 10B. So we will now look at document 64.1 and 64.3. Israel, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for giving the floor again. Just a clarification, we were under the impression that there was support in the room for the U.S. compromise, and we just want to understand if you're speaking against that or if you had accepted the U.S. compromise. Thank you.
I did not hear support for U.S. Amendments, as in the support was for the Secretariat's comments, and that, you know, having a registered, it may narrow where, you know, in countries where they may not even be registered. Yeah, and like I said, if you want to, for export purposes, it's already in the resolution that it needs to be registered if you want to do export. Yeah, so I do not see support for preferably, and I really want to close this item now to move on. Israel, you have the floor.
Chair, our impression was that there was support for preferable, even those who said that they could understand it. So our impression was that the use of the word preferably registered was supported by the discussion.
Okay, I'll open the floor now to ask if there's support for Israel's comments, additional edits to include preferably registered, and also United States amended, yeah. So is there a commercial facility, bracket, preferably registered, breeding this Appendix 1 species? If you support, please press your button. I only have 7 parties that support. So that's Senegal, United States of America. Okay, please continue pressing your button. Please do not off your button, please. If you support. So I have Israel, Senegal, United States of America, Sierra Leone, Switzerland, Malaysia, Congo, Australia, Equatorial Guinea, Niger, Liberia, DRC, Canada, Nigeria, Togo, and Guinea. So there is 15 parties supporting this insertion. There's 15 parties, so I want to open the floor now if there's any strong objections. If not, I will just include it because there's 15 parties. If parties have strong objections, please press your button. Okay, we only have 2 parties, which is South Africa and Colombia, so we will go ahead and include this amendment. Thank you. Okay, so for recommendation 10A, the committee agree on the amendments to Resolution Conference 17.8, Rev CoP 19, on disposal of illegally traded and confiscated specimens of CITES listed species, made on the floor, amendments made on the floor, and also by the Secretariat to the present document. So we will close 10A now. So now we'll move to 64. We'll look at recommendations 10B. 10B, so we'll be looking at documents 64.1 and 64.3 together. 64.3 is submitted by Nigeria and United States of America. So I will open the floor to one of the proponents for introduction. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We're introducing document 64.3. This was submitted by the United States and Nigeria. We've simplified our draft decisions for this document in information document 78, and so we invite parties as I'm speaking to open information document 78. This shows a way of integrating the draft decisions from 64.3 into the decisions to be renewed for 64.1. To introduce this document, we know that providing placement facilities and care for live confiscated animals and plants is an overwhelming challenge for many parties. Parties are often left to handle seized live turtles and tortoises, cacti, parrots, cockatoos, and other taxa. The convention has developed actually detailed and helpful guidelines to help parties handle this issue, especially Annex 3 of Resolution COP 17.8, which encourages parties to develop action plans and identified approved facilities and programs within their country that can adequately care for certain taxa. However, implementing these guidelines is difficult. Over half of parties report that lack of available facilities is a serious problem and that cost is an even bigger barrier. So only a few parties have submitted an action plan and a list of facilities. Our proposal here breaks this guidance down in a stepwise way. Basically, the first step would be the draft decisions directing the Secretariat to request that parties take steps to develop these lists, and then the Secretariat would maintain a list of facilities organized by country and taxa, and when CITES authorities officials need it and request it, the Secretariat would then share part of that list for perhaps a neighboring country, for example. And this could aid parties who lack space or facilities within their own country, but hope to place live specimens within their region. We will read from the information document the changes that we have proposed, and this is for a change to Decision 19.169. Should it get renewed, we would add Part C, directing the Secretariat to support implementation of Annex 3, Paragraph 9 of Resolution COP 17.8, Rev COP 19, issue a notification to the parties requesting parties to, 1, invite placement facilities located within their jurisdiction that are able and willing to accept and care for confiscated live specimens, to volunteer with the management authority for such purpose. 2, submit a list of voluntary placement facilities that the management authority deems appropriate and consistent with the purposes of the convention, including details such as taxa-specific expertise to the Secretariat. And 3, incorporate the facilities in national action plans as appropriate, as described in Annex 3 of the Resolution COP 17.8, Rev COP 19. We would also add paragraph D in this section, directing the Secretariat to compile and maintain a list of voluntary placement facilities submitted by parties, including information on taxon-specific expertise, and share information on relevant facilities with parties through their management authorities upon request for assistance with placement of a confiscated live specimen. And lastly, again, this is from Information Doc 778, we would change the potentially renewed decision 19.171 directed to parties, and this text would direct parties to read, and we would add paragraph B. Parties are invited to respond to the notification to the parties issued under decision 19.169C, Rev COP 20. And C, we would add, finally, parties are invited to consult the Secretariat in order to identify appropriate placement facilities for live confiscated specimens, particularly when they are unable to secure adequate placement domestically. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States of America. Now I'll open the floor for views on the edits, the proposed amendments by United States of America to 19.169 and 19.171. Kuwait, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Kuwait supports the proposal by the U.S. and Nigeria in this document, as well as it is just provided by the U.S. As parties faces difficulties finding safe and suitable places to care for confiscated live animals and plants, the voluntary register will give countries practical options by linking them to the trusted facilities with the right skills and capacity. The proposal will strengthen the implementation of Resolution 17.8 Annex 3 and its responses to the challenges reported by many parties, such as lack of facilities, high cost, and complex logistics. Kuwait values the proposal is voluntary, flexible, and respect national system. We therefore support adopting Document 64.3 and the amendment proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le Sénégal soutient le document tel que présenté par les États-Unis et le Nigeria. Le cas des spécimens vivants est un cas très sérieux. J'ai eu à vivre un cas comme ça avec votre parole, je sais pas qu'ils sont là. Parce que quand vous avez, la première des choses, c'est de mettre en quarantaine les spécimens et de voir s'il n'est pas affecté d'une maladie qui que ce soit. Et c'est des charges. Je crois que ce qui est dit ici, c'est à l'avantage des pays. C'est une palette d'options qui sont proposées et nous appuyons dans ce sens.
Sudan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sudan support the document submitted by USA and Nigeria and its amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We thank Nigeria and the United States of America for preparing the document. However, Malaysia supports the comments made by the Secretariat and does not support the establishment of a voluntary register of placement facilities for confiscated live specimen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On document 64.3, I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states, and we would like to underline the important task to place confiscated living specimens in a way that considers species conservation as well as animal welfare conditions. However, we do not see the merit in creating a voluntary register of placement facilities. We agree also with the Secretariat that its main objective is largely addressed by paragraph 9 of Annex 3 to the resolution COP 17.8, which includes guidelines. We also have concerns on keeping such a voluntary register of placement facilities up to date, as well as the time it will take to do so and the responsibility of the CITES authorities to do so. Next to that, we see risks associated with the public dissemination of facilities taking care of confiscated live specimen of CITES listed species. If necessary, the preference should be to place, in our opinion, should be to place live confiscated specimen either in the country of origin of the confiscated specimen or the territory of the party that made the seizure. If local facilities are not sufficient, solution in neighboring states are possible alternative. The CITES Management Authority can then be contacted on a case-by-case approach. The proposed register does not appear to be the best use of available scarce resources in our view. Therefore, we do not support the proposed decision 20AA 220DD in Annex 1. Thank you. I also heard the proposal of the United States for adding a likewise decision in decision 19.169. Should I also give my opinion on that now? Okay. I saw nodding. So in that case, we actually also do not support the added subdecisions as proposed by the US in decision 19.169. We do understand what's aimed for, but Annex 3 of Resolution 17.8 contains guidelines. Guidelines for parties for drafting a national action plan. And it's up to parties to see which guidelines are appropriate. That also depends on the national context. We therefore see no need to issue a notification on one paragraph of an annex that contains guidelines. We are, as said before, of the opinion that management authorities can reach out to others to exchange on possible facilities if necessary on a case-by-case basis. In that way, information on those facilities will be up to date. We also have concerns on so we do have concerns on keeping such a list up to date.
European Union, can you please wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This was it.
DRC, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La République démocratique du Congo appuie les propositions des États-Unis et du Nigeria et des amendements proposés. C'est une question très importante sur la gestion des spécimens d'espèces après saisie par les organes de gestion. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Sierra Leone, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, considering that we lack the capacity, as a country, we think it's a very sensitive and important matter, and therefore we support the proposal by United States and Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, I'm closing the speaker list because it's quite long. I have South Africa, China, UAE, Namibia, and Australia. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa, take note, this proposal is voluntary. However, South Africa has suitable facilities, especially state facilities to house confiscated species, both animals and plants. So therefore, the current proposal to establish voluntary register of placement facilities cannot be supported. Thank you.
China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On document 64.3, while we appreciate the proposed voluntary register concept, we agree with the Secretary's assessment that Resolution COP 17.8, Annex 3, Paragraph 9, already provides a necessary framework. We support focusing resources on implementing existing provisions rather than creating parallel mechanisms. Thank you, Chair.
UAE, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
The UAE thanks Kenya for the proposal and for raising important issues related to the treatment of confiscated specimens. However, the UAE does not support the proposed amendment. We align with the Secretariat's view that replacing the term disposal and deleting Annex 1, Option 1E could create legal uncertainty and require widespread changes across multiple resolutions and national legislations. We support maintaining Resolution Conf 17.8 as it stands, with only the limited clarification proposed by the Secretariat, including the improved wording of Option 1E. Thank you, Chair.
UAE, can I just check if your intervention was for 64.3 or 64.2? Oh, we are on 64.3 now.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any intervention to make for 64.3?
No, we will be back. Thank you.
No, we are doing 64.3 now. Do you want to?
No intervention at this stage.
Namibia, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Namibia supports the recommendation by the Secretariat. Thank you, Chair.
Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia aligns with the views of the European Union. Thank you.
Okay, I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. Asia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I am speaking on behalf of the AZA, AFDPZ, San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, and the Wildlife Conservation Society. We appreciate the significant work undertaken by the Standing Committee, the Secretariat, and the submitting parties in preparing these documents. We strongly support the proposed amendments to ResConf 17.8, which will enable more consistent and effective implementation of Annex 3. We also appreciate the efforts of the United States of America and Nigeria to streamline the draft decisions and align them more closely within the Annex 3 framework. We support an approach that emphasizes national identification of facilities and targeted information sharing. The Wildlife Confiscations Network in the United States, an initiative of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, demonstrates the added value of coordinated and cooperative national networks. A similar network exists in France between the French Association of Zoos and the French government. Such networks have transformed what was once an ad hoc system dependent on personal contacts into a structured, efficient, and accountable model. By combining a rigorously vetted and actively maintained facility database with dedicated coordination, these networks reduce burdens on both officers and animal care facilities and significantly improve outcomes for confiscated wildlife. We encourage parties to build on this type of national level framework and direct resources toward capacity building, funding, and implementation of Annex 3. In closing, we express our strong support for the proposed amendments to the draft decisions submitted by the U.S. and Nigeria, which we believe provide a balanced, pragmatic, and welfare-focused path forward. We stand ready to contribute practical experience and technical expertise learned from our networks to support this work. Thank you, Chair.
I will take one more. I4, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We align with the comments just now of the AZA, and we also urge maintenance of Decision 19.172, which invites parties and other entities to provide financial assistance or technical assistance for the implementation of Decision 19.169, which is proposed to be maintained. The management of confiscated specimens is crucial for law enforcement, animal welfare, and conservation of endangered species. I4 has developed an online learning tool and a range of materials on live animal handling, repatriation agreements, evidence protocols, as well as assisting the IECN to translate its guidelines into multiple languages. And we thank the Secretariat for making these and tools from other organizations and parties available on the relevant CITES webpage. I4 has also conducted training on a number of countries to build capacity, and we thank the US government for its support that enabled this work. We note paragraph 6 of document 64.1 says that since Standing Committee 78, the Secretariat has made additional progress in implementation of Decision 19169 to produce an analysis of existing practices and materials to support parties. Yet these products are not included in document 64.1 and there is no draft decision related to them. Therefore, IFOR recommends parties include an additional draft decision asking the Secretariat to make these materials available for review by parties. Thank you, Chair.
I'll give the floor to United States of America before I wrap up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the discussion on the floor about this important topic, which we underscore as a core issue of CITES that's in the Articles of the Convention and disposing of live confiscated specimens, and one that concerns us deeply. Right now, live confiscated animals and plants are being confiscated right now and around the world. And we know that this makes up 15% of seizures now that are live specimens. So this is a significant issue affecting many, many parties. And we know that the status quo is not working, so that the decisions being renewed here, we do support their renewal, but we do see that they're being renewed again, and that the guidance is already available in Annex 3. And it's a really helpful guidance, but at the same time, it asks parties to submit lists and it asks parties to develop action plans, but very few parties have been able to do so. And so the intention of our draft decisions here is to break that down into steps to support parties in developing those action plans and lists, and to having the Secretariat maintain that list in a way that's not publicly available. And so we see this as a step that would help implementation of that guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the explanation. I do not see consensus for this, but I do see more support to accept Secretariat's recommendation. So I propose that we go with Secretariat's amendments and not the drafts and not the draft decisions in 64.3 as contained in Info Doc 78. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. If that also, for clarity, includes the proposal of the Secretariat on paragraph 7. On page 5.
Sorry, European Union, can you repeat again?
So if I understood you correctly, you were referring to the comments of the the proposal of the Secretariat in the document, and my question is whether that would include also the proposal of the Secretariat on paragraph 7 on page 5.
No, not yet. So that
Okay,
means
thank
it
you.
will only be for the reference of the draft decision 169, 171, and 173. So I was saying that the committee does not accept the draft decisions in 64.3 as amended in Info Document 78 by Nigeria and United States of America. And then the committee agrees to maintain decisions 19.169, 171, and 173 in Annex 2 of 64.1. I see no request from the floor, so we will close recommendation 10B. Then now we will move to recommendations 10C, deletions of 19.170, 172, and 174. And I did hear support from the EU and Tanzania, Russian Federation, Sudan, South Africa. So I just want to see if there's any objections. Any objections to deleting decisions 19.170, 172, and 174? Okay, I see no request from the floor, so we will close 10C. So the committee accepts deletions of 19.170, 172, and 174. Thank you. Okay, so now we go to document 64.3, Annex 2, insertion of a new paragraph 7 into Resolution Conference 17.8, RevCop 19. So Annex 2 of document 64.3, insertion of a new paragraph 7 in Resolution Conference 17.8, RevCop 19. And also please note Secretariat's edits as well. So I will open the floor now. Thank you. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states, and we understand the issue of cost recovery, which in many cases can be very difficult. But we believe that if such a paragraph is to be included in the resolution, it should be clear that the authority authorized to make decisions regarding the seizure and disposal of live specimen can ask for financial support to implement its decision on disposal. So we would like to accept the changes made by the Secretariat, but we have some additional edits.
Yes, please read it out. Thank you.
We would like to include the words upon request after the word other resources in the second sentence. And then after upon request, it would read to assist in covering costs associated with the seizure. And then after seizure, we would like to insert and decision taken on the disposal by the authorized government agency. Full stop. We would like to delete the text, the original text that comes after that. That's transport, and care of confiscated live plants and animals.
Can you please repeat the second edit again?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you just repeat the additional amendment after the seizure?
It would read, and decision taken on the disposal by the authorized government agency. Dot. Ja, dat komt wel. Zal ik verder gaan? And then delete the original text, transport and care of confiscated live plants and animals. And if you allow me, I could read then the whole paragraph as proposed by us.
Yes, please.
So then it would read 7, encourages parties, governmental, intergovernmental, and non-governmental organizations, donors, and other entities to provide funding and other resources upon request to assist in covering costs associated with the seizure and decision taken on the disposal by the authorized government agency. This concerns only costs which are not otherwise successfully recovered from the individual or entity that violated the convention.
Can you please repeat the last amendment? So after deletion of transport and care of the rest, you have a new text, is it?
It's a new sentence starts. This concerns only costs which are not otherwise successfully recovered from the individual or entity that violated the convention. It's mainly what was there, but it's a new sentence. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We hear the amendments that were made by the European Union, and we think that they, although they align with Article 8, Paragraph 2 of the treaty, I think our intention was to provide more support also for the institutions that partner with law enforcement and CITES parties to be able to care and take care of these animals. A lot of times post-investigation, when we're talking about animals such as reptiles and turtles, these institutions and partners take on a large responsibility, sometimes for decades, in caring for these animals. And we're also, that was sort of also the intention, and I think we have sort of carved that out with the edits that were proposed by the EU, where we're talking about sort of reimbursement back to the CITES parties, but we're leaving out these important institutions that support law enforcement and care for these animals for sometimes decades. Thank you.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We could support those amendments from the EU if that's the way forward, but would have a preference to take out the upon request part of the addition, just so that this support could be proactively provided rather than needing the party to request it every time. Thank you.
European Union, I will give you the floor. You could take some time to reflect on the comments from the United States of America and United Kingdom. I open the floor first to non-parties and observer organizations. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And we understand what the USA is saying, and we feel that is something that does not necessarily need to be in a CITES resolution, right? I mean, of course, entities are invited to support perhaps rescue centers or non-CITES authorities, but facilities that deal with taking care of rescued specimens. So we do not see the need to put that in CITES resolution. And as a response to the remark of the UK, we can accept, and upon request can be deleted. Thank you.
Okay, United States of America and European Union, I do understand the importance of including the long-term care, the costs of, having long-term care of these confiscated animals and plants. So I'm trying to think of a alternative language so that it can fit in as well. So I'm gonna suggest, and I will get comments. So to assist in covering costs associated with the seizure and decision taken on the disposal by the authorized agency, which can include the care of confiscated live plants and animals. I'm just trying to see where to fit in the care because I think that's important as well. So can I get some reflection? Yeah, United States of America.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we can support your approach, but we also like to retain transport.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We can agree on your proposal.
Thank you very much. So I'll just repeat again. So it will be to assist in covering costs associated with the seizure and decision taken on the disposal by the authorized agency, which can include the transport and care of confiscated live plants and animals. Okay, European Union, you have the floor.
We're not opposing to add the word transport, but we feel it's cost associated with, so we feel it's not really necessary to have that all spelled out. Thank you.
United States of America, can I get some views from you?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We would like it all spelled out if possible. I think it brings visibility to all of the intricacies of live animal seizures, and I think it's appropriate for it to be spelled out in the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, so I will be removing transport since it is, I agree that, it is also the associated costs covered with the seizure because transport can be at multiple points. Yeah, so, I'm just trying to get a compromise to remove transport and then, but at least the care is still inside that, United States of America.
What we heard from the European Union was that they could accept transport. I think we're making a compromised approach already with really narrowing the scope of this draft amendment, and so we would like to retain transport and the care of the confiscated live animals and plants. I think that already is a pretty good compromised approach.
Okay, thank you. So for document 64.3, the committee accepts the new para 7 under Resolution Conference 17.8 RevCop 19, presented in Annex 2 with the amendments made on the floor. I'll just read it out again just to make sure we're on the same page. So to assist in covering costs associated with the seizure and decisions taken on the disposal by the authorized agency, which can include transport and care of confiscated live plants and animals. This concerns only costs otherwise successfully recovered from the individual or entity that violated the convention. Okay, thank you, and I close this item. Now I open 64.2. This is a document submitted by Kenya. I will now invite Kenya to introduce the document. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kenya presents document 64.2 that seeks to strengthen the interpretation, implementation of Article 8 of the Convention, which outlines the obligations of the parties regarding specimens that have been confiscated as a result of illegal trade. Resolution 17.8, revised CoP19, has provided variable guidance over the years by distinguishing between the handling of live and dead specimens, and by identifying key considerations such as animal welfare, conservation, and the costs associated with ongoing care. However, through practical experience and continued implementation at the national level, the resolution can be refined to achieve greater legal clarity and consistency with the text and intent of the Convention. Specifically, the term disposal, which appears throughout the resolution, has been used contradictorily. While the term has historically been used within the CITES framework, its multiple interpretations have led to confusion, particularly in distinguishing between the management of live specimens and the discarding of dead specimens or derivatives. Kenya therefore proposes that the term custody be used instead, as it more accurately reflects the legal and practical responsibility that management authority assume when caring for confiscated live animals. The concept of custody is consistent with Article 8, which emphasizes the care, welfare, and well-being on confiscated living specimens. The term custody provides a better description for what the subject resolution seeks to accomplish. Additionally, the current resolution includes a reference in Annex 1, Option 1E, that suggests transfer of confiscated animals to research institutions where vivisections or invasive experiments may occur. Madam Chair, Kenya believes that this provision contradicts the clear intent of Article 8, paragraph 4 and 5, which requires that confiscated specimens be placed in facilities that prioritize their welfare, such as rescue centers or other appropriate places consistent with the purpose of the Convention. Kenya therefore proposes the deletion of this reference to ensure CITES guidelines fully aligns with ethical and conservation principles upon which the Convention is founded. The Conference of Parties is therefore requested to agree to delete word disposal from the title Resolution Conf 17.8, revised CoP19, and replace it with the word custody, and agree to delete Annex 1, Option 1E of Resolution Conf 17.8, revised CoP19 as being non-compliant with the requirement of Article 8, 4, and 5 of the Convention. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I open the floor now. I think UAE, you wanted to have an intervention on this? Yeah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for the earlier confusion. The UAE thanks Kenya for the proposal and for raising important issues related to the treatment of confiscated specimens. However, the UAE does not support the proposed amendment. We align with the Secretariat's view that replacing the term disposal and deleting Annex 1, Option 1E could create legal uncertainty and require widespread changes across multiple resolutions and national legislations. We support maintaining Resolution Conf 17.8 as it stands, with only the limited clarification proposed by the Secretariat, including the improved wording of Option 1E. Thank you, Chair.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. India wishes to thank Kenya for the document CoP20 Doc 64.2 with a view to enhance clarity, avoid misinterpretation, and better reflecting legal and enforcement realities in handling confiscated specimen. We would like to align with Kenya and suggest replacing disposal with custody. India supports the deletion of Annex 1, Option 1E, as placement in section or research institutions, as this would be inconsistent with welfare obligations under CITES and India's Wildlife Protection Act, which rather prioritizes rescue and rehabilitation of animals. Thank you, Chair.
Mexico, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México agradece la propuesta de Kenia y no está de acuerdo en sustituir disposición por custodia. En todo caso, coincide México con la secretaria en usar el término gestión con respecto al subpárrafo E. México también coincide con la Secretaría en modificarlo para aclarar que solo podrán seleccionarse instituciones apropiadas y compatibles con los objetivos de la Convención. Gracias, señora presidenta.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states, and we would like to thank Kenya for the document. Resolution 17.8 gives guidance to make well-considered decisions on confiscated live specimens. We assess the suggestions of Kenya, but do not support the two decisions as contained in paragraph 7 of the document. We would like to retain the term disposal in the title of the resolution, as we feel the term is adequate and captures all possible management options in our view, and has been consistently used within the CITES framework for a long time, as expressed by the Secretariat in the document. On the suggestion to delete paragraph E, we would like to maintain subparagraph E in Annex 1, Option 1, as amended by the Secretariat on page 3 to align it with the Convention. Thank you.
Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We want to thank Kenya for the document. We want to support Kenya generally and especially on the deletion of option 1E of Resolution Conf 70.8. Thank you, Chair.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks Kenya for submitting this document and for their reflections. The U.S. does not support the document recommendations regarding subparagraph A relating to replacing the word disposal. We would be supportive of using the term disposition, as this is more commonly used in an enforcement context. And regarding Annex 1, Option 1 of Resolution COP 17.8, we support the Secretariat's proposed amendments. Thank you, Chair.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. On the proposal to change of terminology from disposal to custody, thank you to Kenya for the proposal. We fully understand and appreciate the rationale behind this suggestion. However, we do not consider that custody is the most appropriate term in this context. The concept of disposal under CITES also includes the offloading, whether by rehoming, returning to the wild, destruction, or other means of specimens, and we don't consider custody provides such a broad or useful interpretation. We do not consider the specific usage of disposal under CITES as necessitating destruction, and is a widely used term across CITES. With regard to the proposed deletion of subparagraph E in Annex 1, Option 1, we also do not support these amendments. The determination of appropriate means of disposal of seized specimens is at the discretion of CITES management authorities, according to the relevant laws and policies in place in that country, and should be made on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the specific circumstances of that case. We can support the Secretariat's alternative language to provide reassurance that the appropriate due diligence has been done by the management authority. On vivisection, in many countries, vivisection is... Okay, all right, thank you, Chair.
South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa, the word disposal is used when confiscated specimen is forfeited to the state, and a ruling is made to dispose of such a specimen in terms of the applicable law. So therefore, the word disposal is appropriate to be used in handling confiscated specimen. However, the term custody, we use it when a confiscated specimen is transferred to a second person for temporary holding. So that person will be temporarily in custody of that specimen until such time when the matter has been finalized in court and a ruling has been made to dispose of. So therefore, if the specimen now is handed over permanently to a facility, it's no longer in custody of that person. That person will be permanently in possession of that specimen. So therefore, we do not support the proposal made by Kenya. Thank you.
Tanzania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United Republic of Tanzania commend the Republic of Kenya initiatives in developing this document, which provide clarity on the use of terminology for effective implementation of the present convention. However, changes of the word disposal of to the word custody will affect the implementation of the convention and warrant for amendment of national legislation, which will take plenty of time as parties have their own internal procedures for amending national laws. Therefore, Tanzania does not support the proposal submitted by Kenya. Thank you.
I'm closing the speaker list now because it's quite long. So I have Senegal, China, Switzerland, Togo, Sudan, Gabon, Botswana, Indonesia. Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente et merci pour les partis qui se sont prononcés. Je crois qu'on est en train d'utiliser des vocabulaires similaires pour dire je soutiens ou je ne soutiens pas. En réalité, quand vous avez en face de vous des spécimens vivants qui sont choisis, il y a forcément, dans un premier temps, une prise en charge. Il faut les faire manger, il faut les soigner. Et qui va vous donner l'argent là? Parfois même, c'est l'agent qui fait un effort dans nos pays où on ne met pas beaucoup d'argent pour l'environnement. Et l'agent, par conviction, se dit, je ne peux pas laisser les animaux mourir. Moi, j'ai vécu des cas comme ça avec des perroquets, et Parole, je dis bien, pour venir me témoigner. Mais les premiers jours, avant que Parole nous soutienne, j'ai pris de ma poche pour les faire vivre. Il y a une prise en charge. Quant à l'utilisation, ça, c'est aussi évident, on ne peut pas l'occulter. Donc, les deux mots sont utilisés en termes de gestion quand vous avez des animaux vivants. Merci.
China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the intent to strengthen welfare considerations for confiscated live specimens. However, we cannot support deleting subparagraph E in Annex 1, Option 1. Regarding terminology, China views disposal as an established term, widely accepted both in CITES language and in our domestic management practice. We support retaining the current term, disposal. Thank you, Chair.
Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Switzerland shares the views expressed by the EU and many others. Thank you.
Togo, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Le Togo remercie le Kenya pour cette proposition et réitère son soutien à la proposition du secrétariat en utilisant le terme gestion. Je vous remercie.
Sudan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. According to Sudan national laws and legislations, we are in line with the view of the Secretariat to use the term management instead of disposal. Thank you.
Gabon, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous remercions le Kenya pour le document, mais nous ne soutenons pas la proposition. Nous soutenons les recommandations du secrétariat qui couvrent un plus grand nombre d'options. Accepter la proposition du Kenya reviendrait à mettre à jour un arsenal juridique important. Merci.
Botswana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Botswana thanks Kenya for the proposal, but we don't support the replacement of the word or the term disposal by custody. We feel that we should stick to the word that is widely used in the text of the convention. Thank you, Chair.
Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Indonesia thanks Kenya for the document it has prepared. However, Indonesia doesn't support the terminology from disposal to custody. And regarding the deletion of the entire subparagraph E in Annex 1, Option 1, we support the document proposed by the Secretariat. Thank you.
I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. Born Free Foundation, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of 13 observer organisations. We support the recommendations in this document. The term custody better reflects the intention of the resolution, particularly in relation to live animals and the requirement for confiscating agencies to care for them appropriately. Although the term management could provide an alternative, should adoption of the term custody be problematic for some parties for the reasons articulated. The option of transferring confiscated live animals to laboratories that undertake vivisection is, in our view, inconsistent with Article 8, paragraph 4b of the Convention. We therefore agree with the proposal to delete Annex 1, Option 1e of Resolution Conf 17.8, Rev CoP 19. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. From the floor, I do not see consensus in supporting the replacement of the term disposal of with custody. But I did see support for Secretariat's proposed edits to the subpara E in Annex 1, Option 1, Rescon 17.8. So I would like to conclude this item that the committee did not agree to delete the word disposal from the title of Resolution Conference 17.8 Rev CoP 19 and replace it with the word custody. The committee agreed to the proposed edits by the Secretariat to subparagraph E in Annex 1, Option 1, Resolution Conference 17.8. I do not see any requests from the floor, so I will conclude this item. Thank you. United States of America, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. A question for clarification, maybe I misheard. It sounded to me like there was support for management of. Is that correct? And is that the proposed way forward? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we did hear from the floor that there were parties supporting Secretariat's amendments to change disposal of to management, but that would mean that we have to change all the documents that has the word disposal. So I just want to open the floor again to see if there is support for that. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The European and its 27 member states do not support that. We think the term disposal is adequate, and as has been said, it has been consistently used within the CITES framework, and we also heard other parties mentioning that that term is used in national legislation, etc. So we would prefer to keep the word disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, so as mentioned, is that, we have to change all the documents in CITES and also your national laws if you have disposal of to change the management. So I just want to see if, I just want to move forward with this item to keep the current term, disposal of. I just want to see if there's any strong objections to that. Kenya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Kenya would like to support the parties that to thank the parties that have supported this proposal. We have listened to the interventions made by all the parties that have spoken, and we had considered that here under our proposal we are talking of management of live specimens that have been seized and confiscated, and as long as those specimens are under the custodianship of the party that has seized, or custodianship of the party that is receiving on request for repatriation of these live specimens, then the entire value chain remains to be a custodial component of the management of those live specimens. But considering that there is no, most of the parties were not for to support this proposal, we encourage that we continue reflecting on how to improve on issues of managing live specimens that have been seized and confiscated, whether they are within our territories as countries that have seized, or they are within our territories for the countries that have requested for the repatriation of these live specimens. It is clear that as long as we have them, they will remain with us, and we have to manage them in such a way that they will not go back to the illegal trade. So, Madam Chair, we accept the verdict of the parties on this, but again, we encourage that we continue reflecting on the management, and it would have been amenable to, if parties considered the use of the term management, if we are not amenable to the use of the word custody. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I really would want to move on with this item. We only have 30 minutes left, and we are still behind. So I just want to keep to the term disposal of, because I really did not hear consensus in supporting the management of. So I would like to close this item now. And like what Kenya said, we can continue reviewing and reflecting on this. Thank you. Okay, now we are looking at Agenda 67, Review of Trade in Animal Specimens Reported as Produced in Captivity. So we will look at document 67.1 first. 67.1, submitted by the Standing Committee. So we are invited to look at the draft decisions on review of CITES provisions related to trade in specimens of animals and plants not wild source in the annex. Please also look at the comments by the Secretariat, and we are also proposing to delete all decisions 19.179 and 19.180. I open the floor to parties. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks the co-chairs for their hard work in the discussions during this intersessional period. We note that the discussions, which have continued for 2 intersessional periods, were intended to develop a common understanding of the modern trade in animal specimens that have been bred in captivity and plant specimens that are artificially propagated, and how the provisions of the Convention, in particular Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5, should be applied to such trade. As noted in the co-chair's document to SC 78, the goal of the discussions was to examine how trade evolved over the years, on the risk related to trade in non-wild specimens, and on the potential impacts to populations in the wild, and to see if the current framework continues to suit its intended purpose. However, they concluded that the discussions so far suggest that, while the main underlying assumption of reduced conservation risk is valid, there is little appetite to look at the larger implementation picture in terms of examining if the current structure in relation to trade in non-wild specimens is useful and if it is mitigating the actual conservation risks to CITES-listed species. Owing to the lack of clear direction based on the working group's discussions, the co-chairs in document SC 78, Doc 62 put forward 3 options for the committee's consideration, with one of them being to note the working group's report and propose deletion of the relevant decisions. Although the United States at SC 78 did not oppose the committee's adoption of option 3 to draft a new draft decision replacing decision 19.179 that would request, subject to the availability of resources, the committee to convene a workshop building on work done to date. Upon further consideration, we do not support continuing these discussions during the next intersessional period. While a workshop may present opportunities for constructive dialogue to close loopholes, it would be an expensive and time-consuming undertaking, particularly if the discussions continue to lack focus as in prior intersessional periods. Therefore, the United States opposes adoption of the draft decisions contained in the annex to document CoP20, Doc 67.1, and we support noting the work concluded to date and deleting decisions 19.179 and 19.180 as they have been implemented. Thank you, Chair.
Mexico, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México, como país de origen, apoya los borradores de decisión y la propuesta de un taller técnico que facilite los debates y la obtención de resultados concretos. Consideramos muy importante el involucramiento activo de los criaderos y viveros en los países importadores en la conservación de especies silvestres en los países de origen. Por ello, proponemos que en el encabezado de la decisión 20AA se inserte una referencia específica a la resolución 13.9 mediante el siguiente texto al final de la 4ª línea en la versión en inglés, antes de as well as any, como sigue. Resolution Conf 13.9 on encouraging cooperation between parties with ex situ breeding operations and those with in situ conservation programs. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Can you please repeat? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, in the English version, and before as well as any, as follows. Resolution Conf 13.9 on encouraging cooperation between parties with ex situ breeding operations and those with in situ conservation programs.
India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. India wishes to thank the Standing Committee for the document CoP20 Doc 67.1. India notes the progress made by the Intersessional Working Group as reported to the Standing Committee at its 78th meeting via documents SC 78 Doc 62 and recommendation of the Standing Committee thereupon. As the work appears to be inconclusive and considering the importance of the issue under discussion, India supports the draft decisions on review of CITES provisions related to trade in specimens of animals and plants not of wild source as contained in Annex 2 of the CoP20 Doc 67.1. Thank you, Chair.
Lesotho, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. The Kingdom of Lesotho appreciates the comprehensive report prepared by the Standing Committee and acknowledges the considerable work undertaken by the Animals and Plants Committees. Lesotho supports the recommendation to adopt the new draft decisions and to delete decisions 19.179 and 19.180. Thank you, Chair.
Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, we wish to support the United States of America, and we do not feel that this draft decision in Annex 2 needs to be adopted, and we support the deletion of the decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Canada is mindful of the shift in wildlife trade patterns to rely more and more on species that are captive bred, and we have advocated examining the convention, including the exemptions under Article 7, to support its implementation in the context of modern trade. We very much appreciate the work done thus far by the Animals and Plants Committee that set a strong foundation for how we should be examining the potential risks and benefits of such trade. To address such a complex and fundamental aspect of the convention, Canada supports the document and the idea of a face-to-face meeting where participants can really examine the issues. We feel that that is the best way forward. Regarding the points by the United States on the comments from the co-chairs, as a former co-chair of this working group, I would note that the comments on the appetite was related to the ability to really understand the issues in an online debate. And it was for that reason that one option presented was to be able to have a more extensive debate through some sort of face-to-face interaction. Thank you, Chair.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. We recognize trade in specimens of animal and plant species not of wild source and listed in the CITES appendices is making up a large portion of overall trade, and that this has gained increasing importance in the work of the Convention. The entire issue is very complex, associated with various challenges. Having followed discussions during this COP, we have heard diverse views on several issues related to trade in specimens not of wild source. We therefore support a workshop that reflects the complexity of the issue and provides the necessary time and platform for different stakeholders to explore joint and pragmatic solutions in the best interest of species and to consider whether existing resolutions should be adjusted or aligned in this respect. It would also be beneficial if the workshop offered opportunities beyond the formal sessions for technical exchanges on essential implementation tools such as identification mechanisms. We therefore agree with the decisions presented in the present document. Thanks.
United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Coming to a common understanding of the obligations and requirements for the regulation of non-wild source specimens is fundamental to the consistent and effective implementation of the Convention. Recognizing the challenges faced by the intersessional working group in considering this, we consider the draft decisions a priority activity for the coming intersessional period, and as such, we support the adoption of the draft decisions. Thank you.
I'll take the last speaker, South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa support the draft decision. Thank you.
I open the floor to non-parties and observer organizations. SSN, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. This intervention is delivered on behalf of 6 observer organizations. We recommend that parties reject the draft decisions and bring these discussions to a close. We note that these issues were first raised at COP17 nearly a decade ago, and there has been little progress since. We are also concerned that the current proposal would involve approximately $100,000 to $300,000 of extra budgetary funding for a workshop that is unlikely to resolve the disagreement among parties. Furthermore, Resolution 1210 provides that parties shall restrict imports for primarily commercial purposes as defined in Res. Comp 510 CoP19 of captive bred specimens of Appendix 1 species to those produced by operations included in the Secretariat's register, and shall reject any document granted under Article 7, Paragraph 4, if the specimens concerned do not originate from such operations. We recommend that COP20 urge parties to fully implement this resolution, ensuring that CITES maintains a robust framework so that species afforded the highest level of protection in CITES are traded only in full compliance with the Convention. Finally, should the proposed decisions be adopted, it is essential that observer organizations be included in any further work on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. So based on the floor just now, I hear consensus in supporting the draft decisions. And there was an additional edit by Mexico. So I'll just read out the edit. Then I will see if there's any objections from the floor. The edit is in 28A, little a, little I. Possible amendments to Resolution Conference 10.16 and Resolution Conference 12.10, as well as Resolution Conference 13.9 on encouraging cooperation between parties with ex situ breeding operations and those with in situ conservation programs. So I just want to see if there's any objection to the edit by Mexico, including another resolution. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We will not block a consensus decision of this committee, but in light of what we heard this morning from the Secretary General with regard to ever-increasing budgetary and workload constraints in the Secretariat, we'll look forward to working through the three committees to ensure that the terms of reference for the workshop are very narrowly focused on one or more discrete issues. For example, coming to a common understanding of how to read Articles 7, paragraphs 4 and 5 with respect to Appendix 1 species bred in captivity or artificially propagated for commercial purposes, and Appendix 1 species bred in captivity or artificially propagated for non-commercial purposes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, United States of America. Mexico, you have the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. Solo una duda. La propuesta que teníamos era de incorporar la mención a la resolución 13.9 en el chapó de la decisión 20AA. Me pareció escuchar que habían dicho inciso A, romanito 1. Gracias.
Okay, noted Mexico. Yep. So it will be in 20AA, as well as Resolution Conference 13.9 on encouraging cooperation between parties with ex situ breeding operations and those with in situ conservation programs, and any other resolutions concerning provisions on trade. Then the sentence follows. Okay, I will close this item. So the committee accepts the draft decisions on review of CITES provisions related to trade in specimens of animals and plants not of wild source contained in the annex as amended by Mexico, and delete decisions 19.179 and 19.180. Thank you. I close this item. Okay, as mentioned last week, we will deal with COM2, item 2, which is regarding legal acquisition findings. So now we are looking at document COP20, COM2.2, regarding legal acquisition findings. So before I open the floor, I wish to acknowledge that some parties had proposed alternative or additional text for the draft guidance contained in Annex 3 of Document 49. including Brazil, China, and New Zealand. At the same time, parties consider that these are important issues that merit a more fulsome and deliberate discussions during the intersessional period. So it would be therefore too premature to adopt the guidelines at this meeting. That is why I propose to focus our attention on the draft decisions to ensure that the mandate to the standing committee is carried out, to carry out further work is clear and focused. So in this spirit, I had suggested that the intersessional working group of the standing committee be instructed to take into consideration our discussions here, as well as any info documents that are submitted by parties. I now invite Brazil to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I will start with your suggestion on decision 20 EE little b. For clarity purposes, would like to request changing the last part of the decision. Then we would delete the text of the word understanding and replace with of the terms founder, parental, and breeding stock, in particular, but not limited to, the operationalizing of Article 7, Paragraph 4 and 5 of the Convention. So the last part would read, with a view to agree on a common and coherent understanding of the terms founder, parental, and breeding stock, in particular, but not limited to, the operationalizing of Article 7, Paragraph 5 and Paragraph 4 and 5 of the Convention. This suggestion...
Brazil, sorry, can you just repeat again slowly? Thank you.
Sure, of course. Then it would read, with a view to agree on a common and coherent understanding of the terms founder, parental, and breeding stock, in particular, but not limited to, the operationalizing of Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5 of the Convention. May I continue, Madam Chair? Okay. This suggestion clarifies the scopes of the mandate and strengthens the basis for achieving consistent interpretation of those terms. Moreover, we believe that the starting point for our discussion in the intersessional working group should be balanced. Thus, we request once again, as we have been voicing since Standing Committee 78, that the base document for the work of the intersessional working group include all terms relevant to this discussion: breeding stock, parental stock, and founder stock, whenever they are mentioned in the draft guidance. Thus, whenever in the draft guidance we found the terms breeding stock and parental stock, we request they are accompanied with founder stock. Brazil stands ready to work constructively with all parties and the Secretariat to achieve this outcome. Thank you very much.
Brazil, just for my understanding, so you're saying that you still want to include the term founder stock in the document draft guidance, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll just get comments on the draft decisions first. I open the floor to parties. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of cooperation with the parties of the Convention, we support the way forward proposed by Brazil and the changes to the draft decision 20.EE as they were read in this COP2. Thank you.
Okay, China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. China would like to delete the proposed decision 20GG because it's in contradiction of the text of the convention. According to Articles 3, 4, 5, re-export requires a different LLF from export or import. China believes that we must respect the convention text first and foremost, which is binding, and afterwards consider downstream measures, including resolutions and decisions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States thanks the Secretariat for developing the present document. The United States has a number of amendments to suggest as follows. For 20CC, we question the need for decision 20CCA as it seems vague in its objective, and given the concerns expressed over the Secretariat's already heavy workload and budget constraints, we would propose to delete this 20CCA, or at minimum, rather than automate the rapid guide, suggest the term streamline or facilitate. To 20CCB, we propose to add the word virtual before workshops. With regard to 20EEA, we propose to delete the text, propose amendments or additional guidance, which follows relevant COP20 information documents, and we propose to add relevant resolutions instead. And if you need me to read the text in full, please interrupt me.
Yes, please.
So the full text in that portion would be relevant COP20 information documents and relevant resolutions as appropriate. And then for 20EEB, we propose to add the word propose directly following with a view to, and we propose to delete and coherent in the same sentence. The full text would read, with a view to propose common understanding for operationalizing, and then the rest of the text would continue. For 20EEC, in light of the discussion of 67.1, we would like the focus of this workshop to be narrow and focus on a common understanding of Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5. We propose this also be a virtual workshop for cost-saving measures. For 20EED, we propose to delete 4 amendments to relevant resolutions if necessary. It is best suited for the intersessional working group to determine the most appropriate place for any recommendations based on the outcome of the discussion. And then we have an additional amendment for 20FF when you are ready.
Yep, please go ahead.
Okay. We propose to delete and, if necessary, amendments to existing resolutions or guidance, and to add the word submit, which would follow shall report its conclusions along with a comma after conclusions. We propose to add revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custody for consideration, comma, and make any additional recommendations as needed too. The full text would read, the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions, submit any revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custody for consideration, and make any additional recommendations as needed to the 21st meeting of the Conference of the Parties. And then if we could get clarification on China's comment. Thank you, Chair.
Interpreter, can we get 10 more minutes? Thank you very much. China, I give you the floor for clarification on your deletion of 20 GG.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. Because 20 GG, it mentions the re-export and also the specimens that were in captive bred operations. For these two kind of specimens, their requirements of legal acquisition finding are quite different from export situation, as you can find them in the Article 345 in the Commission text. So the main difference is that management authority is satisfied with different things. One is according to the provisions of the present convention, and the other is not in contradiction of the laws of that state for the protected fauna and flora. So you can see the difference quite clear. We should not extend the LAF requirement for export and import further to re-export. That's the main rationale. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I followed all of those changes. So regarding the draft decisions in the COM 2.2 document, with respect to the proposed amendments from the United States to 20 CC, Canada can agree with those proposed amendments. With the draft decision 20 EE, the small amendment that the United States made to paragraph 20 EE subparagraph A seems fine. We can agree with Brazil's proposed amendments, which were also supported by the EU on 20 EE subparagraph B. We did not catch any amendment proposed by the United States to 20 EE paragraph C. I believe they wanted to mention something about the focus of the workshop. For 20 AFF, the US amendments are fine. We really wanted to focus on 20 GG and echo some of the comments made by China. I think we could retain 20 GG, but we would recommend putting a full stop after in making required legal acquisition findings. This would allow us to retain the encouragement to remind ourselves about Resolution COP 4.24 on proof of foreign law, but it would not attribute the obligation to make a finding to things like parental and breeding stock, which are not the actual obligation in the convention. So again, Canada would support 20 GG with the deletion of the last part, including which reads, for specimens presented for re-export and parental breeding stock, and simply put the full stop after required legal acquisition findings. Thank you.
United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've heard the comments from China and Canada, and so maybe as a compromise, we can take out legal acquisition and just make the required findings, because there are findings that, or maybe not, under 1016 as well as 1210 that the parties should be making for trade in specimens of particular source codes.
Can I also seek clarification for 20 EE little c? Your comments was just to make sure that the technical workshop is being scoped, right? And there's no actually language change. 20 EE little c. United States of America, yeah, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think Canada had a question for the United States regarding 20 little c. We can support that. I mean, listening to what happened in the last agenda item, it feels like the workshop is moving forward. And so we did make a note at the end of that agenda item that we'd like to scope this workshop to be very focused on a common understanding of Article 7, Paragraph 4 and 5. So we're just reiterating our desire for this workshop to be scoped. I will also say for 20GG, this information is also helpful in the making of non-detriment findings. So we can just actually keep it as required findings, if that's amenable to the room. Thank you.
China, going back to you, for 20GG, instead of deleting the whole paragraph, are you okay with just deleting the legal acquisition? And that means the findings, then full stop. So that means the last sentence, and particularly endemic species to support other parties in making required findings, full stop. Is that okay? China, you have the floor.
China can support Canada's compromise the way forward by deleting the reference to re-export and also the captive bred issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In regard to amendment proposed to the draft decision 20EE, the one proposed by the United States of America on letter A, we can support it. Regarding letter B, we express our support again to the text proposed by Brazil. Regarding letter C and D, we do not support any changes. We would like the text to stay as it's written in the COMDOC. And the same is for 20.FF. We should like it to remain as it is. Regarding the draft decision 20GG, we in principle agree what China said is the first intervention, and for spirit for compromise and cooperation with parties, we can support the text as proposed by Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the compromise. So I'll just go through again the edits one by one. So if you have any objection or it's not clear, just press your button. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Sorry, Chair, we're happy to go through one by one. I think we were just going to say, hopefully, we came to the same conclusion as Canada. Thank you.
Okay, so we look at 20cc little a, 20cc little a. In the third sentence, to automate, we will change it to streamline relevant parts. 20cc little a. Then we go United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I think our first option, and I'm not sure how the room feels about it, was to eliminate that whole scope of work. And if that wasn't supported, to change automate to streamline. But our initial position was to delete little a.
My way forward is just to amend the automate to streamline because it's subject to extra budgetary resources anyway. So, any strong objections to leave it there and just amend automate to streamline? Okay, I see no request from the floor. I will move to 20cc little b to put virtual workshops. So continue to organize virtual workshops. Then 20DD will remain. 20EE will remain as it is. 20EE little a. Further consider the draft guidance on the chain of custody required for demonstrating the legal acquisition of the parental breeding stock, taking into consideration the discussions at CoP20 and relevant CoP20 information documents and relevant resolutions as appropriate. So after relevant CoP20 information documents and relevant resolution as appropriate. Then 20EE little b, I will start with a view. So I think with Brazil's edits, it will be with a view to propose a common understanding of the terms founder, parental stock, and founder, parental, and breeding stock, in particular, but not limiting to operationalizing Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5. I repeat again, so this one will be with a view to propose a common understanding of the terms founder, parental, and breeding stock, in particular, but not limiting to operationalizing Article 7, paragraphs 4 and 5. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is but not limited to, and in the last part, paragraph 4 and 5 of the convention. Thank you.
Okay, noted Brazil. So then we go to 20EE, little c. Provide inputs to the technical virtual workshop. So there's an additional word of virtual. 20EE, little c. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I understood that the virtual was added to 20cc subparagraph B. I believe this paragraph references what we just agreed in the previous decision, which is not a virtual workshop, so I don't think virtual belongs here. Thank you.
Noted. Thanks, Canada. So yeah, so this one, 20EE, little c will remain as it is. 20DD will remain as it is. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our amendment to 20DD was to keep it broad and to have the intersessional working group make recommendations and not really specify about amendments to resolutions. If they're going to make amendments to resolutions, they're going to have to also revise the guidance. We wanted to just be general, that they submit a report and make any recommendations to the 82nd meeting of the Standing Committee. So to delete amendments to relevant resolutions. Thank you.
European Union, I'm just coming back to you because I think you supported the retention of the para as it is, 20EE little d. So can I get your view, please?
I kindly ask to read it again to have clear understanding of the US proposal. Thank you.
So if it will be submit a report and any recommendations to relevant resolutions, if necessary, to the 82nd meeting of the Standing Committee. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is not our proposal. Our proposal is submit a report and any recommendations to the 82nd meeting of the Standing Committee.
Thanks, United States of America. So EU, it will be submit a report and any recommendations to the 82nd meeting of the Standing Committee. European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, United States of America, for the clarification. We can support it, the text that the United States of America have proposed, just to be clear. Thank you.
United States for 20FF, can you just read out the edit that you had just to make sure that we have the correct one? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. We would be proposing to delete and, if necessary, amendments to existing resolutions or additional guidance. We would be adding the word submit that would follow directly after shall report its conclusions. There would be a comma after conclusions, and then we would propose to add revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custodies for consideration and make any additional recommendations as needed to. And then that would read in full, the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions, comma, submit any revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custody for consideration, comma, and make any additional recommendations as needed to the 21st meeting of the Conference of the Parties.
Okay, so I'll just European Union.
I kindly ask to reread the changes that are being proposed to decision 20.FF, just to have a clear understanding of the proposal. Thank you very much.
So it will read, the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions and submit any revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custody for consideration and make any recommendations to the 21st meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to say to support the amendment proposed by the US. Thank you.
I'll just repeat again in case it's not clear. So the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions and report its revisions to the draft guidance on chain of custody for consideration and make any recommendation as needed to the 21st meeting of the Conference of the Parties. Is that clear? European Union, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. If I understand correctly, we can agree with mentioning the improving of the text and the amendment to the text of the guidance. We would like to keep in this mandate the sentence, if necessary, any amendments to existing resolution. So to keep it in the text and to merge with the proposal of made now on the floor by the United States. I hope it was clear. Thank you.
United States of America, just coming back to you, is it okay to leave it there, the if necessary amendments, and then we try to merge with?
Yeah, that's a fine compromise approach as long as we're talking about revisions of the draft guidance and any, if needed, any, revisions to resolutions. That's okay with the United States. Thank you.
Okay, I will come back to 20FF on the new text. So we go to 20GG. So 20GG, I will start from line 4, 20GG line 4. So it will be to support other parties in making required findings, full stop. And the rest of the sentence will be deleted. So 20GG will be to support other parties in making required findings, full stop, and then the rest of the sentence is deleted. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we also feel that 20GG should be moved up to directed to parties. Where it's nestled now, it's directed to the Standing Committee. And just throwing the U.S. approach out there again, which was to sort of retain the entire paragraph and remove the legal acquisition. So it's to make required findings. So it can apply to non-detriment findings, legal acquisition findings, 1016 findings, 1210 findings. That was the United States' preference if there was any support for that.
Okay, I did hear more support for Canada's proposed to keep legal acquisition findings. So sorry that I got that wrong. So it should be to support other parties in making required legal acquisition findings, full stop, and then delete the rest of the sentence. So is you guys okay with that? Okay, thank you. European Union, you have the floor.
Endemic species. Thank you, Chair. We support moving the draft decision under at the beginning because it's directed to parties. Thanks for noticing that. We don't want to make a consensus on that, but anyway, we think that since endemic species issues are being dealt under another document, maybe this sentence in this draft decision should be deleted, but we don't make consensus on that. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. So we will just continue with to support other parties in making required legal acquisition findings and then full stop. And now going back to 20FF. 20FF will be the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions and submit any revision to the draft guidance for consideration and make any additional recommendations including any amendments to existing resolutions as needed to the 21st Conference of Parties. I repeat again, the Standing Committee shall report its conclusions and submit any revision to the draft guidance for consideration and make any additional recommendations, including any amendments to existing resolutions as needed to CoP20, to 21st meeting of the Conference of Parties. European Union, is that okay?
20.5? Yes, it is okay for us. Thank you. Just a small clarification. Are you going to get back to 20 GG?
No, so I've already said that we will go ahead with to support other parties in making required legal acquisition findings, full stop. European Union, you have the floor.
So I was wondering if our comment about deleting particular endemic species can be taken into account, because again, it is being dealt in another under another document, so maybe it should be stay there and not in this draft decision.
Interpreters, can I have 5 more minutes, please? Thank you. United States of America, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I apologize for taking the floor. I hope this is the last time. But with the revised statement by Canada, can we just take out legal acquisition and say required findings, period, since it does cover a whole host of issues?
I think we need to close the session already because we are very, very behind time. So I think we close for 20 GG and then we'll come back after lunch. So can parties please reflect, on 20 GG, and then we come back after lunch. Thank you.
Just some housekeeping announcements. There's a working group on Pau Brasilia Equinata taking place in Yelopia Daba from 12:15. We also have the Finance and Budget Working Group in Snow Leopard starting now as well. And lastly, there's a working group on trade and threatened endemic species, agenda item 73, taking place in the Saiga room now. Thank you, Chair.